Apologies for the late start. Some tech issues this morning. Welcome into the Farzy Show. This is the Farzy Show, presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. And you bet your ass it's wonderful to have you along for the ride. Here's something I can't remember if I've ever done. I don't think I've ever done on this show. The Flyers. That's right. Starting out with the Flyers, getting a shout out. Not just a 5-2 victory over the Anaheim Ducks over there, you know. Trevor Zegras goes up against the team, his former team, and nets 2 goals on him. And after the game, now this isn't why I'm more excited about Trevor Zegras getting the 2 goals against the Ducks. I'm more excited about a 22-win Flyers team as of right now. That's what I'm excited about. But the extra added sugar on top here is that after the game, Scott Hartnell's like, hey, Trevor Zegras. That's got to feel good, doing that against the team that gave you away, all that. And he goes, it felt bleeping amazing. Live, on air. Thank you for not, it's just another game. Nope. It felt bleeping amazing. He was also saying, Cutter Gauthier, unfortunately, he had a goal as well last night, but they lost, so that's a shame. Congratulations to the Flyers. 22-12-7. Much better than I thought they would be. I said meaningful games at the end of the year. They're certainly going to give you that, but they might even exceed that and be a shoo-in for the postseason. The Philadelphia Eagles have a playoff game on Sunday at 4:30 against the San Francisco 49ers. I didn't get a lot out of Vic Fangio yesterday, other than Nakobe Dean. Looks like he expects Nakobe Dean to be back in this game, be back for this game, which I think most of us expected. And then Kevin Patullo said something that might just fan the flame of optimism for some people. And look, I'm not inspired by Kevin Patullo. I'm not listening to this going, oh, they're going to be fine now. No. But I even mentioned this on yesterday's show. There are some people that have the thought of, and I consider this to be desperate optimism, but there are some people who have the thought that the Philadelphia Eagles throughout this season have just kind of been just trying to eke out victories, just trying to win football games, not do anything special, not control games, more so play the game not to lose. Play actually similarly to the way they played last year, with the one big exception and one big difference being you didn't have the most dominant force in the NFL this year, which was a dominant run game. Saquon Barkley behind the offensive line of last year was the most dominant force in the entire NFL. And then when Jalen had to throw the football and win, Jalen threw the football and won. But what was reliable more than anything, which was historically dominant, was the Eagles' rushing attack. They don't have that luxury this year, but still with the same mindset, they have just operated, and it seemed this season to be more in the vein of just don't turn the football over and do whatever it takes to win the football game. People have thought maybe they've been a little bit more conservative than last year because they don't want to turn the football over and they don't have that dominant force. So they'll be a little bit more conservative, play a little bit more scared, play a little bit more even by their own quarterback's admission, play the game not to lose, not to play the game to win. And people are saying, they're just being conservative. They want to save it for the postseason. First off, no. Second, Kevin Patullo yesterday might have just fanned that flame that people that had that mindset might be right. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all, but I know there's people that really want something to be optimistic about going into this game, and I'll give it to you. Then, lo and behold, I watched the John Elway documentary on the Netflix there, right? And I'm into history in general. I'm into history in general, but if it could be sports history, oh man, that's a double win for me. So I grew up in a similar way with John Elway that I grew up in a similar way with like Michael Jordan. Okay. Like people forget 80s Jordan was a choke artist, couldn't win the big one, ultimately it'd be a loser, that kind of thing. And then like the 90s happened and that all went away real quick. Well, the mid to late 90s happened with John Elway, and all of a sudden the guy that couldn't win the big game the guy that could win you, conference titles left and right, couldn't win you the Super Bowl. All of a sudden, he won the Super Bowl. And we all know Terrell Davis and all that stuff. But what really jumped out to me was the thing that changed with John Elway was something that we're talking about now in the city of Philadelphia. And it's not, anything comparable because Jalen Hurts has obviously been to a Super Bowl early in his career and won a Super Bowl earlier in his career than John Elway did, obviously. But one thing got said with John Elway that I found fascinating because it does relate to today, and that's when he had Dan Reeves as his head coach before he had Mike Shanahan take over as head coach. John Elway said that while he was starting up his career, they were playing games not to lose. That was more so Dan Reeves' philosophy, as opposed to go out there and impose your will, damn it. Like, that was the kind of message delivered. And I'm thinking about this. We're talking about things going on in the 80s, and they still apply to today, where coaches will be dedicated to their system, dedicated to their philosophy, sometimes not exactly coach to what they have, but just try to ride the coattails of, if we just don't turn the football over and we play conservatively, don't do the thing that might just put you over the top and win the game all in one moment. Be timid, be scared, basically. But they don't call it that. They call it being smart. Trying not to do too much, just trying to win the football game. And it also got me thinking going down another rabbit hole, because I remember taking a clip when I was at WIP. I remember we took a clip from like a 1995 show, and all the talking points were basically the same as they were then. I think we did this in like 2016. And it was just like how you could always take the arguments of yesteryear and just put them in today and just change the names. Are they good enough to do it? Can they make the adjustments? Can whoever win the big game? That whole thing. Well, here's where, if you're looking for optimism with the Philadelphia Eagles, there's no better argument for whether or not you can do something than the argument of, I've already done it. And when I look at Jalen Hurts, and I really just try to be real about this whole situation, like, I don't have great confidence that the Eagles are going to make it back to a Super Bowl. I don't have great confidence the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl again, because, yes, every year is different. Despite the fact that you've won it once doesn't mean that you're going to win it the next 10 years in a row, or win, start a dynasty in any way, shape, or form, or win back-to-back. This team just, anyone who's watched knows that this team is not the same dominant team that it was a year ago. And if they are going to win, it has nothing to do even with what the offense could do in this postseason. It has everything to do with what the defense can do in this postseason, whether or not they can keep the opponent to a low score that this struggling offense throughout the season has struggled to put up numbers consistently. That's really what it comes down to. But here's one thing that I can feel pretty good about. I do not, if I had to look through the season, the rest of the postseason, and see this Eagles team winning, and even if they are one and done, or if they lose in the second round, whatever it might be, I know one thing: Jalen Hurts is not going to choke. A.J. Brown's not going to choke. Devontae Smith's not going to choke. Saquon Barkley's not going to choke. The biggest concern for me is the offensive play caller. That's the biggest concern for me. And the reason I go there, even more so than offensive line, which struggled in Buffalo, has not been at all the same. We know in the run game, in the passing game, it hasn't been the same either. You're going to have Landon Dickerson coming off a full rest here. You're going to have Cam Jurgens coming off a full rest here. Tyler Steen, even. Lane Johnson's going to be back. Jordan Mailata has had a not great year, to put it simply. The good news for them, I will say, is the pass rush of the San Francisco 49ers is ass, okay? 20 sacks on the season, fewest in the NFL. Their quarterback pressure rate is 26.7%. 26% of the time, they're actually able to get pressure on the quarterback. That's the second worst in the NFL. So as far as that goes, Jalen Hurts and the offensive line might get a little bit of a break as far as that goes. But my biggest concern isn't even the offensive line. It's the play caller, because you've had struggles on the offensive line this season. What adjustments have you made to help them be in a better position to have success. Yesterday, Kevin Patullo addressed the media, and again, the only thing I really got from him was maybe a hint things could be different. I played for you yesterday. Nick Sirianni talking about potentially flipping the switch in the postseason, a switch I don't believe in really in any sport. But Kevin Patullo yesterday talked about, hey, what could be the difference here between the way you guys played steadily throughout the regular season and how you could play in the postseason?
Really, up to this point, our whole goal has just been win games, and that's what we're trying to do, is win as many games as we can, and obviously now it counts even more. So as far as game planning and going forward, right, it's whatever we need to do is what we're going to do to win the game. So I think we've spread it out to do totally different things from game to game, week to week, and so that's kind of where we're at. We'll just do whatever we have to do and keep pushing forward.
Did that fan the flame of optimism for anybody? Because I know there's people out there, as I stated earlier, there's people out there that are like, it's just different. It's going to be different in the playoffs. Okay, I hope so. And then I came across this stat yesterday that the Philadelphia Eagles, in 9 of Jalen Hurts' 16 starts this season, in 9 of them, they were held to under 22 points, so 21 or fewer. 9 of those starts. And then that got me going down the rabbit hole of point differential, which I don't put as much stock in as other people, except for in 2023, it was dead on accurate for how bad this football team really was. Even at 10-1, 10-3, you're like, well, they really haven't controlled any of these games. Like, there's 2 games, the Buccaneers game in 2023 and the Dolphins game in 2023. Those are the games that they won by 10 or more points. They blew out the Dolphins when Vic Fangio had a pretty banged up defense. But anyway, so that year in 2023, they had a point differential of +5. There was only one playoff team that year that had a worst point differential than the Philadelphia Eagles. Only one team had a worse point differential of +5. That was in the playoffs, okay? That was the Pittsburgh Steelers, who amazingly had a -20, a -20 point differential on the season. This year, ironically enough, that's also the low. They're low again. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're at +10 on the season. But anyway, so the Eagles were +5 in 2023. This year, they're +54. The 49ers are just above them with a +66 point differential. Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers, the LA Chargers, the Chicago Bears, and the Pittsburgh Steelers all have a worse point differential than the Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. Those are the playoff teams that have it worse. So the Eagles are, compared to 2023, sitting pretty. But as we've all watched this season, those 9 starts where your offense has struggled mightily. And by the way, in 2 of those starts, you didn't get as much as a completion in the second half. Both of them wins. The Buccaneers this year and the Bills this year. You saw an offensive shutdown. An offensive shutdown is what I should say. Put that emphasis there. That's what you have going into the postseason. And now all of a sudden, because it's January, you're going to flip that switch. You've had 17 opportunities this year to make people feel like, oh, they could do it again. They could do it again. The defense has checked every box. Since the trade deadline, Jalen Phillips coming here. You've seen this defense find new heights. That was a line of demarcation, really, for this defense improving, getting after the quarterback. Started to become, through the last 5 weeks of the season, the best team in the NFL at getting after the quarterback. Where's that line of demarcation for the Eagles offense? Where's that moment where you went, they figured it out? Because I haven't seen that moment. And even in few and far between spurts with the Eagles offense, the Vikings game, for instance, the Raiders game, the first Commanders game, the second Giants game. Like, there's moments later, like, okay, maybe they've got it. Maybe they got right. And then they haven't got it right. I did go back because something else Kevin Patullo was asked about yesterday was Robert Saleh's defense with the New York Jets taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in a game that the Eagles actually lost 20-16, I believe was the final of that game back in 2023. 20-14, excuse me. And that was a week 6 matchup where all of a sudden the Eagles just took it on the chin against the Jets. And they had multiple turnovers. There was an ugly Dallas Goedert turnover. There was I think Jalen Hurts interception. There was a fumble. There was just a lot of stuff going on in that game that was just ugly, if you remember. But the one thing that jumped out to me about that game that really stuck in my head, and I went back and I actually watched like the extended highlights of it just to jog my memory a little further. But one of the things I remember was after the game. So what turned the tide of the game was a interception. Jalen Hurts threw an interception on a 3rd and 9 towards the end of that game that ended up getting brought back from the 46-yard line to the Eagles' 8-yard line. And next thing you know, Breece Hall runs it up the middle, and he gets a touchdown. And all of a sudden, the Eagles, they get the 2-point conversion, and the Eagles are trailing 20-14. I remember after that game, it was Adams that picked it off. I'm blanking on his first name. But after the game, they're interviewing him, and they're like, how'd you know? It looked like you knew where that ball was going. What happened there? And I went back and I watched this play specifically. And after the game, he's being interviewed, and he said, oh, my coaches told me if I go up to the line of scrimmage from Jalen Hurts' pre-snap read, and then I just fall back to my position, the ball will be right in my chest. And it pretty much was. That's pretty much exactly how it happened. They took their corner and a safety, I believe, and they put him at the line of scrimmage. Neither rushed, and they dropped back into coverage. And I swear to you, when we watched the Chargers game this year and you saw that defensive tackle pick off Jalen Hurts, it reminded me of what the Jets did. Now, Kevin Patullo acknowledged that 2023 game, Robert Saleh was the head coach. It was his defensive scheme, but he was not the defensive play caller. Well, you're going to see a lot of those same tendencies in this San Francisco 49ers defense this weekend. They did go back and look at that game, trying to pick up anything they could. There was a lot of mistakes that were really unforced mistakes. Like Jalen Hurts fumbles the football, throws an interception because his hand gets tipped. And I remember looking at this play unfold, and I think he had Dallas Goedert over the middle of the field, wide open, right in front of him. In a game you're winning. And it's the type of situation where it's like, just take what you got, man. And he's creeping up in the pocket. Meanwhile, both sides of the line are starting to collapse. Both sides of the pocket are starting to collapse. And by the time Jalen Hurts winds up to throw it, he fumbles it. It goes dead duck in the air, and it ends up getting intercepted. They were jerky as an offense throughout, but you're going to be facing a very similar defensive scheme here with Robert Saleh running the defense of the 49ers. So something at least worth checking out. Totally different personnel. You're going to see Bryce Huff again. That's fun. Bryce Huff took Jordan Mailata for a sack in that game, this game in 2023. And Bryce Huff took Jack Driscoll for a sack in that game as well, back in 2023. But I bring that up while still acknowledging the fewest sacks in the NFL belong to the San Francisco 49ers for their pass rush, and the second lowest pressure percentage in the NFL. That's what the Eagles are dealing with as an offense. People will talk about home field advantage. They'll talk about coming east again, One of the things that I look at with this game, though, and I know people, the playoffs, one thing I want to stress to people, it's weird. In my lifetime, and many of yours as well, we've seen a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team leave sunny, beautiful, tropical Tampa, Florida, to come to Philadelphia in January and watch Rondé Barber pick off Donovan McNabb and win against the Eagles comfortably. We have seen the New Orleans Saints leave the Dome in January to come to Philadelphia to face a Chip Kelly Philadelphia Eagles team in the postseason. And we have seen that dome team that never won outside on the road in the playoffs win outside on the road in the playoffs. It comes down to how you play the damn game, not where the game is. Does it help most of the time? Sure. But I'm not going to use that through all the ups and downs this season. I am not going to use where the game is being played, the weather it's going to be played in. A West Coast team going East Coast. I'm not going to. This team needs to be better because for me, when you're here's one thing: being the reigning Super Bowl champion does change. It changes my overall expectation, and it changes where the bar is. Because for me, the bar isn't, well, they just got to win a playoff game, and I'll be happy with this season. I don't know anyone that's like that. It's not just about beating the San Francisco 49ers. It's about getting back to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. That's what it's about. So even if they eke out a win where, the 49ers were tired and West to East Coast again for them and, playing in a cold January, late afternoon, early evening game, that's what really did him in. No, you're going to have to go out there and you're going to have to execute. You're going to have to go out there. You're going to have to call good plays to be executed. Here's one thing that we don't talk about enough. Whenever players talk about executing, my question, and a lot of this season, my question has been executing. Is the play worth executing? Is the play dialed up? Is it worth executing? Or were you put in a bad position to begin with? And that includes getting to the line of scrimmage with enough time on the clock so your quarterback can look at the defense and go, nope. Similar to what Nick Sirianni told us in Buffalo, if he sees a play call or hears a play call coming in that he doesn't like, ooh, yeah, don't know about that one. That's going to be part of it. The other part of this with this Eagles offense, there's some basics here that I just feel have been ignored. And it has everything to do with putting your players in the best possible position. Saquon in the passing game is a true threat. And if you're struggling getting the run game going, how come you're not putting the ball in the hands of a player that can make plays for you? Like seeing games where he's not even targeted. And here's one thing I will say, and this is not in defense of Kevin Patullo, but one thing I'd also like to see from Jalen Hurts, and there's a perfect example of this that I talked about in the Buffalo game, and it was the play where the Eagles are backed up against their own end zone in the second half. Jalen Hurts is trying to avoid the sack. They go tush push. They get a couple of yards there. Jalen Hurts ends up being brought down behind the line of scrimmage when he had to scramble to his right. On that play, now this is for the people that just wanted to say Jalen Hurts was fantastic. Jalen Hurts played fantastic. No, he didn't. Like, you don't have, 16 yards in the second half and no completions, and then but the quarterback was great. No, the scheme was terrible. The play calling was ass, but there were still plays to be made. One or two at most. But don't tell me about how great he was. And I love Jalen, but don't tell me how great he was when you weren't able to move the football more than 16 yards or even get a completion. Yes, mostly Kevin Patullo, a lot of the offensive line. But at the same time, as the quarterback, you have to know that all that's falling apart around you. Maybe not roll yourself into pressure in a situation like this. And the specific moment I'm talking about is when Jalen Hurts rolled into pressure. He kept his eyes locked on A.J. Brown. As he ran across the field, he rolled to that side of the field, hoping to be able to get that little, easy pass to AJ if he got some separation. And instead, he rolls into coverage. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because if Jalen stays in the pocket, which was a clean pocket, they were really only rushing 3 in the pocket. You had an opportunity to dump it down to Saquon Barkley, who had one guy to beat. Saquon Barkley can beat that guy. So, look. I don't want Jalen Hurts. It's unfortunate that Jalen Hurts is put in the position to have to do this, but he's got to, unfortunately, when he hears that play or he sees what the defense is doing, and he does that for the people that say he can't read a defense ever, he can do that. He has done it. He does it. Understand that the offensive line might be asked one day, the play calling might be asked one day, or again, and just keep it simple. Just give the ball to the guys that can make plays for you. And a lot of times that's Saquon Barkley with one guy to beat. And that might actually come up in this game here against the 49ers. It's certainly going to come up at some point in the postseason. But not getting the ball to Saquon Barkley, if it's not a called play. There was a play that the Commanders ran. A little F under. Very simple. Getting the ball in a running back's hand that way. Seth Joyner's been calling for that throughout the entire season as an opportunity to get the ball in the hands of Saquon Barkley, let him make a play if you can't do it in the run game. Do that now. Maybe that's something the Eagles are going to change. Maybe that's something we're going to see. Maybe that'll be something as shocking and as unbelievable as a shovel pass that we have seen 3 times this season, where all of a sudden that becomes the smartest thing we've ever seen. Just let me see instances like that for this Eagles team. And then all of a sudden you can inspire some confidence. Maybe that's what Kevin Patullo is talking about with this.
Up to this point, our whole goal has just been win games. And that's what we're trying to do, is win as many games as we can. And obviously now it counts even more. So as far as game planning and going forward, right, it's whatever we need to do is what we're going to do to win the game. So I think we've spread it out to do totally different things from game to game, week to week. And so that's kind of where we're at. We'll just do whatever we have to do and keep pushing forward.
I don't know how that went off again. There you go. Getting into it like that with the Philadelphia Eagles offense to help get them jump started would be tremendously helpful to them. Now, the other part of this is just overall how this offense, or excuse me, how this defense is going to carry on what they did at the end of this season into the postseason. If there's anybody, and I was half kidding when I said this, but if there was anybody that did deserve time off, it was the Eagles defense. And even if you're the offense, or even if you're Nick Sirianni, your offense just needs to put up some points. I would have been fine with the goal of just having the Eagles offense go out there, build a bit of a lead, give your defense that cushion, give Tanner McKee something to manage, and then maybe they play the second half. And also, at the same time, it would give you an opportunity to kind of feel out what was going on in Detroit, or excuse me, in Chicago with the Lions and the Bears. But they chose, obviously, not to go that way. It's funny. Also, on that note, went into the store the other day, and there's a couple of people that enjoy talking sports with me at this particular place. And he's like, I'm so glad I caught you on my way out. I was like, hey, man, what's going on? He goes, how you feeling about Sunday? I go, I still feel like they're going to win, but I hate that they rested their starters. He's like, I'm the same way. I should be over it by now, but I'm not. I'm like, I feel exactly the same way. But we both came together on the idea of the defense. The defense is what they're going to ride. I'd love nothing more to see a 41-10 Eagles victory on Sunday, but I don't think anybody is feeling that. Unfortunately. Your Philadelphia 76ers are back at it tonight, 7 o'clock against the Washington Wizards after an extremely disappointing and, quite frankly, buzzkill loss. To the very shorthanded Denver Nuggets squad. So they got that going on for themselves tonight. Coaching news in the NFL. This is one of those things I just kind of stared at my phone for a minute. After 18 years, John Harbaugh has been fired as the Baltimore Ravens head coach. I remember John Harbaugh as the special teams coach in Philadelphia. I remember him as, I think he got a wide receiver gig. He was the wide receiver coach of the Eagles as well at one point, because he told Andy Reid, come on, man, I'm never going to get a head coaching job as a special teams coordinator. And sure enough, I think he did 1 year as a wide receivers coach. I always thought it was secondary coach, but whenever I go back and look at it, I'm like, oh, that's right. It's different. Pulling it up right now. Special teams coordinator. Oh, it was defensive backs coach. Okay, that makes more sense. He was here from 1998 to 2006 as a special teams coordinator, then defensive backs coach for 1 year in 2007, and then after that, he was with the Ravens. I've heard from a beat reporter, a guy who's covered him for a long time, that when he became the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, his training camp schedule was literally a copy and paste from Andy Reid. It was just like, well, yep, all that, copy that, paste that over here, and that's what we're going to do. What an incredible run, including a Super Bowl championship, a team constantly in contention, and a guy that you look at as a head coach, that when you talk about a CEO head coach, that's what he is, a CEO head coach. But I guess the Baltimore Ravens, they had a dispute over some other coaches coming back or not. And now John Harbaugh is going to have the pick of the litter when it comes to where he's going to coach next season. Let me tell you about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's phlsportsnation.com. Damn, Farzy, you really called out Nick's scary style of coaching. Yeah, not great. Not great, obviously. Let's start it off up here. Sean Gillespie, hello. Why Niners wine? You're one and done. Oh, why Niners? You're one and done. I hope so. Patullo is running plays through last year's Madden to go behind tape watching. To go beyond tape watching. That's true, Sean. Thank you. April, hello. Kids are awake. Can you guys hear them? Isn't it fun? Can't believe Ravens gave the Giants a chance to steal the best coach around. That is also another possibility. Hardcore for all, hello. Early forecast temperatures dropping through the 40s with gusty winds for Sunday's games. Says Hardcore for all. Patullo even looks dumb on that screenshot. Sean, I love that it stuck with you. I was cracking up when he said that after a minute. Oh, dealer time. Yes. Definitely dealer time, Sweet Pea. No 7-second delay, evidently. Oh, on the TV with Trevor Zegras? Yeah. Checking around to see if hell froze over. First thing, Flyers? Wow, you gotta love them, man. I love this season that the Flyers are having. Absolutely love Trevor Zegras. And I love talk, man. I love talk. Look, I normally won't champion the idea of calling out the media, but when he was done talking about Matvei Mishkov, I was like, okay, I get it. It's good for you. You guys are having this great season. You guys want to talk about Mishkov being a thorn in the side sometimes? All right. Cliff Kingsbury, he pulled himself out of the Commanders. Can't say I blame him. Farzy, who would you like depending on what happens in the playoffs? Eagles could have a new offensive coordinator in 2026. If that's the case, there should be several intriguing offensive coordinator candidates. The only person I've really thought, well, two people I've thought about. One is Cliff Kingsbury recently with the news yesterday. The other is Mike Kafka. Kafka was obviously like a third-string quarterback here. He got the interim gig when Brian Dable got fired. Dable we've talked about before. Sure, it is unfortunate, but anybody but Kevin Patullo is kind of how I feel right now. Kafka would be an upgrade. Dable would be an upgrade. Kingsbury would be an upgrade. But I don't think Kingsbury is leaving the offensive coordinator position to be an offensive coordinator anywhere else. I think he's leaving to be a head coach somewhere else. That's what I think he's doing there. But Kafka is intriguing to me because of the Reed tie-in. Also the tie-in with the Eagles. He was the apple of a lot of people's eye as a head coaching candidate some years ago and got the OC job in New York. And as we all know, was not a decision maker, and that was the bigger problem that they had. Stop being a Debbie Downer. That's funny. Fun fact, I got engaged during that Buck. I remember you mentioning something about that before, April. During that Bucks playoff game, laugh out loud. He was going to wait till they won, but he saw it was going. That's how it was going, so he did it at halftime. That's beautiful. At the Vet. You know, when I look at the Vet, when I look back on it, I think romance. That's what I think. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Actually, you know what's funny? There you go. Hold on. This is actually just added. This is a piece of not Lincoln Financial. This is a piece of Veterans Stadium. My buddy, I won't name his name because he wasn't supposed to be there, but he went into the rubble. He was working in radio at the time. Gave a guy, this is before I was ever in radio, gave the security guard a T-shirt from this radio station. He's like, hey, if I give you a T-shirt, can I go in there and get a couple pieces of rubble? He's like, yeah, go ahead. So he gives him the T-shirt, goes in there, and gets a couple pieces of rubble. My brother thought this was his forever. And then finally, this past Christmas, I was like, we were at his house, and I was like, dude, you know that's mine. When are you going to give it back to me? And I think we were just inebriated enough where he did give it to me. So that counts. That counts. I don't care. I have it back. A little piece of the vet. April, I think you got engaged right here. Right there. I think that's where you said yes. Congratulations. So there we go. Is that even in the shot? It's not even in the shot. Come on, Farzetta. There we go. Bo Bichette. Okay. I'm okay on that. Please, Giants don't hire Harbaugh. Right. If Jalen Hurts wins another Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP, is he the bestie? I know what you mean. The best dual quarterback in history. I'd really have to think about it. But the first guy that jumps to mind is Steve Young, and he's not better than Steve Young, even though Steve Young only won one. That's pretty wild. I'll have to think about that. I don't want to just blurt out an answer. Even Chip Kelly would probably be up. No, I'm out. Thank you, though, Philly. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody in the chat. You guys are great as per usual. I'll be back with you guys. Okay, today, 10 o'clock, Locked On 76ers, Keith Pompey and I, on the Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. 1:30 today. Let me just double check this. Try to learn my schedule. I think it's 1:30 today. We're doing Locked On Eagles Squad show. Yeah, 1:30. Harry Mays, Jason Martinez, and moi, Locked On Eagles Squad show on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. So make sure you guys check us out today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bye.